Now, we saw this huge URL. And Richard asked, how come most URLs that I see don't have all that stuff in them? Where is all that other stuff? And that, in fact, is true. That whole big syntax that I showed you, most of it's optional. And in fact, depending on what you're trying to do, a URL might look very different. Here's a URL that you find in Firefox. So let's look at this URL. Can you guys read that? I don't know if you can read that. Unfortunately, I cannot blow that particular text out. But it says about :config. So about is the scheme. Config, I don't know what config is. It's the address, right? Or maybe it's a file. Or maybe it's a path to the resource. I'll bet it's a path to the resource. In any case, first I get this delightful warning, which says, you don't want to be in here. And then you get a bunch of nerd stuff. This is the Firefox control panel. Now, in most cases, most things have the control panel looks like this. And in fact, web browsers tend to have pretty complex control panels as it is. But Firefox and most web browsers are the same. They have this hidden set of parameters that allow you to configure the thing even further. Since it's a web browser, the way you get into that is you use this magical little URL. The scheme is about : and the resource itself is the config. I'd be real careful in here if I were you.
So if I break something using this, it's your fault, then, right?
Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say it that way. I'm going to say run with scissors. You know, poke your eye out. It's a computer. It's not going to kill you if you do something wrong. Somewhere on this machine, and I used to know where, somewhere on this machine is a text file that contains all of this stuff. If nothing else, you can go find that text file and delete it. Most software will wake up and say, oh, I don't have a config file, and it'll fill it with defaults. Nothing else, you can delete the dang application and reinstall it. It's a computer. Get to the point where it's second nature for you to run with scissors and try stuff out. My son is a car tech, and he thinks nothing of, he would, I said, what are you doing this weekend? He says, oh, I'm swapping out an engine and a transmission, and then I think I'm going to change my injectors over. They're running a little, and I'm like, you can do that? He said, yeah. It's all a matter of attitude as far as I can tell. Because he doesn't even have all of his main tools at home. He ripped out his interior last week. And I looked at his car and I said, how can you drive it? And he gives me this look like, duh, old man. You know, there wasn't even a steering wheel in that dang thing. Of course, the steering wheel is a racing steering wheel, so it comes out all the time. So he says, well, watch this, plugs it in, drives away. I don't know cars. I don't know cars. I know computers. I feel no compulsion about going here and doing whatever I feel like to this. And yes, 99% of what you do to a computer makes it fail. They're very fragile little machines. Geez, if we made cars like we made computers, there would be millions of us dead. But anyway, feel free. Play with anything you like. Back to URLs. So that's one URL that you find that doesn't look like your typical URL.
What did you type in to get that?
About : config.
There's another one that's about : Mozilla gets the out.
Oh, let's do that. Hold on a second. Let me plug in my little driver. So it's
Or
about
Firefox. No.
Firefox?
It's either about Mozilla or about Firefox.
Nope, that didn't work. Let's try about Mozilla. Cool! Easter egg. Easter egg. Cool.
It's like this ongoing saga, supposedly Smile-ish, where Mozilla and Firefox
So in an earlier version of Firefox, I would get a different quote?
Yeah, they change it every version.
Very cool.
You should be able to
Neat
go
stuff.
back. I think the first time it was noticed was Firefox like 1.5 or something.
What
And
version?
it said something about, and arose a great bird.
Yeah.
Caused great fear, something like that.
Very cool. And I'm sure somewhere on the net you can find all of these.
Oh yeah. Do you know of Nightly? It's a 64-bit version of Firefox.
Which one?
Nightly. It's
Okay.
like a 64-bit version of Firefox. It just came out recently.
Cool. You guys, I hope, are going to be more up on this than I am. At least I hope you are. Where did I put that? Well, let's just do something here. So. God, I hate Notepad. Excuse me. I'll use it, but if I have Notepad++,
You do.
I do. Great. So let's save this thing somewhere. Save as example, just put it on the desktop. Okay, so I've got a file here that is just an HTML file. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to open this in Firefox. Let's look at that URL. Again, I'm sorry if you can't read that very well. But the important point here is that when you open a file, it supplies a scheme called file:. File:. And then there's this / separator, this guy, which identifies it as a hierarchical URL. And then there's no machine name. There's no address. The address is blank. There's no character there at all. And then that's why it looks like there's 3 slashes there. There are 3 slashes there. Why are there 3 slashes? Because there's nothing here. It's blank. It doesn't exist. And then the next thing is this path. C:users 2-213 desktop file name. This is a URL that you get automatically. Most browsers will try and generate this URL for you when you open up a HTML file on your local machine. If you're not paying attention and you're making a link from one to another, or one HTML file to another, you'll think to yourself, oh, that's what I can plug into my image tag. Or that's what I can plug into the href attribute of my anchor tag. This URL only works on this machine because it's a local URL. It's going to a file on the current machine in this particular location. Every quarter, I get submittals where I can't see the images. The links don't work because they used a URL that worked on their local machine and doesn't work in general. It doesn't work when you put your file out on the server. So there's 2 ways to know that this is going to work out on the server. See if I can do this quickly. There's no guarantee that I can do this quickly. Please cut me some slack. So, here I'm bringing up files. Oh, no, I don't want to get updated. I want to go to sws.edu. SWS, what is it, pcc.edu?
Yeah.
This is the part of our show where you get to see all of my typos and you get to correct me on the fly. No, don't do it like that. No, don't do it like that. So if you've ever used FileZilla, and you all have by now, You notice this is the chatty little interface with the FTP server. The FTP server is talking to you saying, oh, I saw that. Oh, yes, I'm doing this. Wonderful thing. Over here on this side of the thing, I am seeing the SWS server. Over on this side of the user interface, I'm seeing my PC. Down here, there's more status windows. It's a pretty complex little user interface, but frankly, it's child's play once you start recognizing what you've got. So, I want to go find our place on the net. So that's under students.
Did you put the port in?
Pardon me?
Put the port in?
Did I put the port in?
Yeah, the 21.
No, I did not.
You go to YouTube?
It defaulted to the FTP port.
Which is the 21?
I think it's 21. It might be, let's see.
Well, when I signed into files, I only use 21.
Go back to the top, it said 21.
Yep, it defaulted to 21. Exit mode, ready, complete.
It was very top right there, second line.
Yep. So there's the URL that it's using. It's using an IP address because it's a nerd box, and there's the port, 21. If I were using secure FTP, it'd be what, 22?
Yeah.
All right, let's go find the place where I want to drop this thing. CIS. There we are. And under here is greater. I'm going to stick it in there. So now I need to go find it on the desktop. Hopefully it's not entirely, there we go. So now it's on the desktop. Here's my file. Drag it over here. It's there. So let's open up this thing, and I'm going to go through the same rigmarole here. Except I'm going to then, to show you just how forgiving most web browsers are, I'm just going to throw a URL at it, and it's going to fill in the HTTP. It's going to fill in the colon, the //. It's going to fill in the path to the resource, because that defaults. And it gets me to exactly where I'm going. Notice as I click on these links, we are driving deeper and deeper into the server. This is what I mean when I say that a URL helps you know where you are. As you move around a website, a well-designed website will have a nice tree structure to it so that you can always look up at the URL and say, oh yeah, that's where I'm at. A badly designed website will have URLs that don't mean anything. Some people, it's a philosophical thing. Some people feel like it's not necessary for humans to understand the URLs. I tend to disagree, think that it is useful and required that your URLs tell a story. So in fact, here we are. We've told a story. We've worked our way to the student area of the server. We're on our particular class, and this is the folder that I tend to use when I need a place to go up in this area. And now when I click, I'm at the same thing, but I've got a different URL. This URL, in fact, will not work either. Because your web browser is still trying to be nice and friendly, you can't plug this URL into your code and have it work under all circumstances. You need to give it the full real deal. And it keeps stripping it off, like you said. It strips it off. It's being, frankly, far too helpful at this point. This is called an absolute URL. Called an absolute because it is a fully qualified path. Fully rooted path. These are all synonyms for a path that starts at the top and goes all the way to the bottom. An absolute path goes http://www.machine.com, and then it has path to file.html. These are all directory names. That's an absolute path. This will always work. You could use absolute paths all the time if you wanted to. They're awkward. Why? Because I want to have this file on my system, and then I want to put it on somebody else's web server, and I don't want to know where they're going to put it. I frankly don't care. It's not important to me as a web designer. As a web server operator, I want to get stuff from my designers, and if this week I want to serve it from one location, I want to serve it from that location. If that disk fills up, I want to move it to another location. Websites should be portable. Websites should be portable. So instead of having the tree marker, so if we had this, it would be somewhere where I had a folder called path, and then underneath that folder I had various other folders, one of which was called 2, and there are other folders. These are my stupid diagram versions of what looks like a folder, I hope. And then in this folder was my file.html. This is the path to the file. Now my web server is pointing to that folder. Who knows where it is on the actual machine? If we could somehow log into sws.pcc.edu through its console, like a real machine, we would find that this path is actually somewhere else, deep in the tree. You only care about what's in this folder. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to go. Who wants to volunteer to look in their stuff? So Rod. So we look in Rod's thing. He's got it spec just like we said. Let's zoom in a little bit. All he cares about is what's from here down. He doesn't care about all of this stuff up here.
Your screen's not down.
How embarrassing.
Now you know why I didn't mind.
Okay, I'll ask again. Can I really show it?
I don't care.
Good morning.
There's nothing bad in here today.
There it is. How long was it actually, was I talking while you guys couldn't see it?
Not really.
Thank you for not laughing.
About an hour.
Goodbye. I haven't been able to follow a word you said all day. What the heck? Good morning, sunshine. Anyway, as I was saying in our last exciting episode, he just cares, and I know, Rod, you care deeply about so much of this stuff. But here are all of our folders. Under here is Rod Fisher, and in here is the standard directory structure I asked you to make. Doesn't matter to you any of the stuff above here. What matters is the stuff underneath here. So if you go into images, you start to drill down, you can come back up. If you look at journal, you can see his journal files. So how do we do it so that I don't have to worry about all of this part of the URL? How do I get rid of, I don't want to worry about that. So what kind of URL do I use? Anybody? Do I have to put all that stuff?
Relative.
Pardon me?
Relative.
Some people's relatives are better than others. And in this case, this is your... The web browser remembers where you are. At any particular time, it knows, well, the last URL I fetched was at this place. So if you hand it just a piece of the URL, let's say this is the last URL you gave it. If you give it just file 2.html, and you leave the rest of this off, it'll assume that you're still in the same folder, and it'll just look in that folder. It'll come up, it'll create a big long URL for you, and it'll ship that off to the server. And the server and the web browser will cooperate to make your life easier. As Rod said, this is a relative URL. It's relative to where the current page is. This is really cool, because now you can just put a bunch of files in the same folder, and they can link to each other, and it doesn't matter where they get put. It doesn't matter where the server admin puts them. That link, what does the whole tag look like? It looks like A equal A, it's an anchor tag, right? So it's href equals quote file2.html and quote close tag. That's not what it was, an anchor tag, that's what it was. My URL just contains the file name. Yes?
Is it possible if you can push down a little bit of the screen?
Oh, this thing? Yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't think I can get rid of that. Does that help? That's about all I can do. I'll write it up above. So, again, the closing tags. So I've got two different kinds of tags here. I've got an anchor tag that uses a fully rooted absolute path name. And I've got an anchor tag that uses a relative path name. For the most part, your websites should always use relative path names when you're linking within your website. And then when you're linking outside your website, you use whatever URL gets you there. Now, the reason I get vague there is because sometimes the URL that you see up in your browser is not what they want you to link to. So like if you ever go to a WordPress blog or somebody else's blog, and they ask, and you want to link to this, you want to say, hey, this is a great posting. There's usually a little button there that says share or tweet or whatever. If nothing else, it says permalink. And when you click on that, it gives you a URL that is nice and easy to understand. It's very simple. It doesn't look like a database query, it looks like a URL. Permalink is a version of the URL that they expect you to be able to hand off to other people. Sometimes the URL that it's actually using is a database-driven URL, and it's got that big search query form in it that you saw with Google. Even Google will give you a form of the URL that's nice and short, and you can understand. And then there are other services like Bitly and other services that will take a URL and shorten it even further. So does anyone here tweet? Anyone on Twitter? Okay. Some of you still have an attention span. It's good for you. A lot of times, if you only have 140 characters to play with, putting in one of these URLs will just not work. So there are services called URL shortener. Anyone?
Excuse me, Al.
Yes, sir.
So with the relative URL, that file does not have to be in the same folder as that web page?
With the relative URL, you give it a path to that file from the current web page. That doesn't have to be in the same folder, but the folder where it is has to be reachable from where you are. And that's what we're going to talk about next. And it's going to require that we actually go to the command line.
Dun-dun.
I know. Dun, dun, dun. I was hoping it wouldn't have to come to this. But, see, back in the old days, there were no graphical user interfaces. Oh yeah, Grandpa? Tell us more. That's back in the old days, everything was text. No, Grandpa, that can't be true. It's true, Junior. Did people live in trees and beat each other with clubs? No. This was in the 1990s. URLs still have that same kind of vestigial tail. So let's go take a look. Where am I going with this? Why does it matter? Because of dot. Dot. So on a Windows machine, to get to a command shell, you use the program called CMD. cmd.exe. And it opens up this thing called command. Now the first thing you do in the command shell, who's used this before? Alright, I'm preaching to the choir, you guys already know all this stuff. So you probably have a favorite set of properties you like. You probably always turn on quick edit mode. You probably always switch to a more usable font. Probably always make sure that your screen buffer is big and that you have plenty of lines of history. These are things that you do every time. And in fact, when you save this, you can set it up so that it remembers that. So here I am talking to a program that eats text, that takes your input and responds to it. This is called a command shell. Every computer of every operating system has command shells. If you get to be good at computers, you will use these as often as you use the graphical user interfaces, if not more often. Notice that in the prompt, this is called a prompt. I don't mean to talk down to you, but I just gotta make sure we're on the same page. This is called a prompt. What this means is it gives you an idea of where you are in the system, and then this little blinking cursor here says, I'm ready for input. It's just like Tron. It's amazing. If you give it a bare input with just character terms, it just keeps prompting you. There's some old commands like dir that show you the contents of that directory. This is what DOS used to be like for all of us. Look at these two things here. There's a directory called dot. And what's even weirder is there's a directory called dot. Now, if I wanted to change directories, if I wanted to go into a folder to go see what's in there, I can do a change directory command on Unix. What is it on Windows? Chdir? Well, let's see. Let's just ask Windows. Help. Yay. Okay. Chdir. Yeah. Changes the current directory. Chdir. Or CD. Great. Stands for change directory. Change directory, well, let me get a listing of the directories. I want to go into the desktop, because remember that's where I put my HTML file. So I'm going to change directory to the desktop. Now if I do another dir, there's my file. It's somewhat irrelevantly listed as being 3000. Can you tell there was a time when every byte mattered? When if your file was a couple bytes too big, you'd run out of floppy disk space? How quaint. Gosh, Grandpa, tell us about floppy disks. So, what a big number you had, my dear. The better to store pirated movies, Junior. Okay.
What about punch cards? Come on.
So now I've got this path here. Whoa! I've got this path here that says where I am in the file system. I've got this directory listing, and now I know where I am. If I wanted to, I could notepad this up. Notepad. I could run a program and hand it, I could hand it that file name. And if I do that, it runs the program and it hands it the file name. This is exactly what a web server does when you ask it, go get me that file. It goes to the file system, it grabs that file, and it sends it across the internet to you. Here's the cool thing. If I want to go back up, a layer, where did I come from? I came from desktop. So I could do CD to desktop. Yeah, that's not working. What if I CD to dot? That worked. What the heck's going on? Now if I CD to desktop, it works. And I'm back down into desktop. So when I want to go down the tree, I have to give it the name of the place where I'm going. Since I was already at desktop, if I wanted to go down, there's no desktop below me. It didn't work. And then look at this weird thing. I use the CD to dot dot. All dot dot means is go to the directory above where I'm at. It means go up. Go up. Now what's really cool is I can do that more than once. I can do CD dot dot slash dot dot. Now where will that take me? I'm going up once, and then I'm going up again. Where am I going to end up? Users. Let's find out. Bang, zoom. You guys already know this stuff. And then look at this. If I wanted to go all the way back down, I could do CD. What is it? 2-213 slash desktop. And I go back down. Now, a better instructor than I would have really cool animated pictures showing you moving, some little guy moving up and down a tree as we did the CD command. Well, I'm not a very good instructor because this is what you deal with all the time as a computer nerd. You are constantly in a text interface. Your web browser under the hood is dealing with a text interface. You guys gotta get used to dealing with text. You gotta get used to dealing with these command line interfaces. Okay? When you get a little bit further in your web design career, you're going to be writing code that talks to other programs. Your programs are going to be sending URLs to each other and talking to other programs called application programming interfaces, APIs. APIs are all text. The whole universe of computing is text underneath. When you guys go to a movie and you see some super hacker and he's hacking as quickly as he can and the screen has got all this really cool graphics flying all over the place, it's so sad. It's not like that at all. You get to an Uber hacker and there's just a lot of text flying around. And they're really good at typing. That's the other ironic thing. Now I'm going really deep on this stuff. The ironic thing is when I went to high school, I thought that typing was for girls. God, that was not the first nor the last time I was so wrong. Typing is for the smartest and richest guy in the room.
In the 70s, you took typing to be in a class with the girls.
See, you were a lot smarter than I was. I didn't even think, wow, I'll go type with the girls. So sad. Typing is what all computer nerds do all the time. Anyway, back to reality, Grandpa. This notation, this dot dot notation, is what you use in relative URLs. So, if I'm over in FileZilla, I've got that same dot dot notation here. FileZilla is working on the same basis as my command line interface. So let's go down into Rod's folder. So now I'm down in Rod's folder. Have you done the image tag yet? Okay, great.
I may not have done it right, but
Well, let's go see. Let's go grade Rod's image. Huh?
it shows up.
This is fun. I shouldn't do this. I'll probably get sued. Rod, treat me nice when you complain to the dean.
I learned something.
So here's his page, and since he gave us that big song and dance about getting it to validate, it's no surprise that it validates over here. Can I turn on the status bar? Or is that just lost to us forever? Toolbars. Lost to us forever. So I click on this thing, it doesn't go anywhere, not surprising. But he's got this image file that shows up in his page, just like he's supposed to. Strangely, there's no image file here. It's probably, in fact, there it is. There's that image file. It is up and over one file. So down in here, if we look down in his journal, we've got these things. If we go back up a level and then we go back down into image. So it is likely that the URL looks like what? Probably looks like image, what's the attribute for an image name? Sorry, that's the tag, but what's the attribute that shows me where the path to the image is?
SRC.
SRC. Always quote your attributes. So if it has to go up from journal and then back down into images to get to that file, what does the path look like? You can't answer because you've been here before. I gotta go up one, so what do I use?
Dot, dot.
Dot, dot. I gotta go down one, so what do I use?
//
I use one slash and then I use the name of the place where I want to go, images, and then another slash. These are called path separators. And it's blah 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 dot JPEG. And then I close that tag off. I go up one level, I go back down into the folder where that image is, and then I go get the file. So having said that, let's go look at his source. Hey, Firebug. Yep, let's go look at his source, Jimmy. Boy, now I'm even hallucinating. Time to shut this class down.
Yeah, good time to fix it.
Pardon me?
Now you will see if I did it right.
This is fun, isn't it? Oh, it's so exciting. There's the styles, and not bad on that indentation.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. There it is. Here's his image. It's got a little of that border action going on there. Woohoo. He's also got an alt tag, bully for you. And he's got this relative URL, except he's got an extra path separator.
Yeah, I just
You don't need that extra path separator.
I'll change it.
While we're here, the other interesting thing that he's doing here, which I would want to see every one of you guys do too, is he's specifying the width and the height of the image. Now it is a continual source of annoyance to me that web authoring tools don't do this for you automatically. Some web authoring tools will, some won't. Let's take a moment and consider the width and the height attributes. The reason you want width and height attributes is, anybody? Richard.
Because it'll have the width, if you don't specify, it'll have the width and the height of what you download.
That's right. And it won't know that width and that height until it actually gets that file. So on an older browser, they actually started rendering the page before they got the file. And you would see the page display, and then you'd see it rearrange itself as if the images came in, and then it was repainting the screen to put the images in there. Modern browsers, I think some of them still do that. In any case, if you supplied the width and the height already, the web browser knows how big of a hole to leave for that image. And it'll render that page once, and then it'll plug the image in there. It appears to a human that it rendered faster. Every time you speed your page up, you increase the chances that that person will stay on your page. What's the thing most people do on every website? They leave. The thing you do most often on every website is you leave. And for most websites, you leave within seconds. You arrive on a website, you're like, this isn't the right place, and you leave. It's true. If you look at any web analytics, most people are coming to your website and immediately leaving. You've got to capture them in that first few seconds. You've got to make sure they want to stick around. One way you can do that is make sure you display your page as fast as possible. Giving it the width and the height tag lets your browser display your page faster. Now the other thing that Richard was kind of implying here was that you can put anything you want in the height and the width. You could put 50 pixels in there. And the web browser will make a little square that size and will cram your image right in there. You can make a box that's bigger than your image, and it'll try its best to display it. Sometimes it'll just leave it sitting there in a corner of the box. Sometimes it will try and blow it up. I frankly don't know. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. Make the height and the width attributes the same size as your image. Help your browser out by giving it a few hints about how to render the page. If you need a thumbnail image, if you need a smaller one, and most of us do, make 2 copies of your image, a thumbnail version and a bigger version. And then link to the bigger version through the thumbnail version. I have 1 minute left, so I won't show you how to do that. We'll leave that as an exercise. Okay, so that's what we covered today, was URLs in the abstract, big, long, nasty things. URLs in reality usually are smaller and simpler. Then we covered the difference between an absolute URL, which is a fully qualified domain name, protocol, the whole thing with a full path, and then relative URLs. In your assignment, you have to show me one of each. I need to see a full rooted domain name URL, and I need to see images, all right, I need to see relative URLs. And when do you use relative URLs?
Within the page,
Within the
within the page.
within the page, within the site. So if you're ever linking to your own stuff, try and use relative URLs. When do you use absolute URLs?
Outside.
When you go outside. And even then, and what you never do without thinking, you never cut what's up in the browser and paste it into your tags. That's just not a reliable way to understand what your URL is. Give it a little thought, it'll be clear. That way you'll never have that file colon problem. That way you'll never have a URL that breaks later. Good luck, and thank you very much.